Here we go, take 3. It's taken a long time for me to get to episode 1, which is going to be all about Pokemon, but there's a couple of reasons for that. Number 1 is that I realised, or I was pointed out by my nieces, that I have a very annoying tick of when I'm speaking, I tend to gather a load of saliva and slurp it up when I'm starting my next sentence. So I've got to not do that. It's a conscious effort. The second part as well is the fact that I missed some points from like take 2. And the third part is that I want to try and make it the best video I can. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to try and get better as I go. So it's all a learning experience for me. But again, thanks to my niece for helping out with the camera setup and noticing my annoying ticks, which I want to try and improve as I get better at making some of these videos. As well as looking at the camera, which is what my friends have told me. Last time I used my missus' phone and it kept timing out, so I kept having to tap it. So hopefully just going to keep looking at you guys or whoever's watching the video. So thanks again for turning up. Thanks to my nephew for these figures. We actually managed to add a new one, but these are all of his Pokemon figures. I can name some of them, but not all of them. Squirtle is one of my favourites, and it's what I'm trying to get my son Adam to say as his first word. I believe this one is Totodile. Pikachu is probably the most recognisable fictional character alongside Mickey Mouse, but definitely the most recognisable Pokemon character. We have Machop, we have Abra. I always get confused between Abracadabra and Alakazam. This one I have no idea what it's called, so anyone in the comments do let me know. And this is my nephew's most recent edition. He got it for his birthday. I did actually get it for him, but this is Charizard. Now, Pokemon is the OG, or the first exposure I had to anime. Again, this channel isn't just going to be about anime, but it's probably what I've got the most knowledge about. Anime being Japanese originated cartoons or comics. And a lot of people might not realise that Pokemon actually, even though it was American dubbed or English dubbed, it's from Japan. Pokemon stands for pocket monsters. As you can tell, they're small little monsters that you can go, they're in the wild, kind of like normal animals, but you could go and capture them with your Pokeballs, small spherical balls that you would throw at the Pokemon once you kind of battled them or weakened them a bit, so you could capture them and then train them as well. Now, it was my first exposure to the world of anime specifically, but I thought it was super cool in terms of just the story of wanting to be the very best, wanting to have all these little friends of yours. I'm personally not a massive animal fan or animal friend myself in terms of I don't have any pets. I get the fish once I won from a circus, which didn't last very long. But I thought these monsters were pretty cool because you could train them and they could fight amongst your friends or your rivals, so that was pretty cool. It was my first exposure, like I mentioned, to a different type of cartoon from the Western sort of cartoon. And it was actually one of my first exposures to video gaming. Not the first, my brothers had an Amiga for those old retro heads, but Pokemon Red was the first game that I actually got personally myself. I remember going to the Disney store and getting the red cartridge, which I'll try and put an image up of. Now looking back on it, I'd probably go and get Pokemon Blue because it leads me to my next point is favourite Pokemon. Do you guys have any Pokemon, 1, that you remember, but 2, which one is your favourite? My favourite to this day is still Blastoise because he's the evolution, the final evolution of Squirtle, although I guess it's Mega Blastoise now. They keep adding more and more, but it's basically a massive turtle, super hench and massive, with cannons, water cannons in the back of his shell, which was pretty cool. The other Pokemon that was pretty good, or that my family recognises, Snorlax, which is probably what I'm more like at the moment, someone who just eats a lot and falls asleep all the time. Snorlax was this huge Pokemon that you couldn't move once you'd fallen asleep, basically, and I think a lot of my family would say that I'm very similar to that. In terms of Pokemon nowadays, I think there's well over 500, someone in the comments can correct me, but one of my school tricks or cool tricks back in the day was I memorised all 150. I doubt I could tell you all of their names right now off the top of my head, but I still remember a fair few, and maybe that's a video for another time to actually rank the first original 150, but it's well over 500 now in terms of there's different mega evolutions, there's pre-evolutions, there's different generations, there's all sorts of different regions. They've got loads and loads more monsters now as well, so lots of different Pokemon. In terms of the cartoon, the theme song, Wanting to Be the Very Best, is probably very recognisable for a lot of 90s kids. Me and my friends, before a night out, as a joke, as a wind-up, we used to kind of put that on YouTube or listen to that song and get pumped up and hyped up. And it's got quite a motivational message in terms of wanting to be the very best and catching them all and being with your friends. So it was cool back in the day. It's very cringy and cheesy now, but it still kind of bangs and still drops in terms of the actual tune itself. In terms of the characters, this is the reason why I'm wearing the cap back to front, is because Ash, who was the main character, he used to flip his cap around when he was getting super serious. Caps don't really suit me, especially back to front, because then you can see my massive 5 head, but Ash used to rock it pretty cool. He was always young. I think the series is still ongoing, but he never aged at all. He must have been like a 12, 13-year-old still to this day. But the one thing that did happen over time, which especially as a 90s kid never thought would happen, because he would always lose whenever he'd go into a major battle, was he did eventually become a Pokemon master, in terms of he actually won a tournament. So that was a big deal. I think it only happened in the last couple of years or so, but when I was young watching it, he'd always go to a tournament and end up losing, which made him more realistic, that he wouldn't just kind of win and defeat all of his troubles straight away. It took him time to get where he needed to be. Then we had Brock, who was probably one of the first exposures, apart from maybe Hey Arthur, of a melanated character in anime or cartoons for me, but he was probably problematic because he was a gym leader, but he would basically just chase after any woman or girl or lady that he would see on the streets. He was basically trying to be a lady killer, always getting rejected, but he still was a good gym leader, and he often liked taking, I think he was a bit of a chef on the side as well, but yeah, he was a cool character. And then Ash had Misty as well, who's a fellow trainer, a gym leader. But I really liked the cartoon itself because of the world building. It was very consistent. They had Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy, which you'd find across all the different regions with slight variations. You had all the different professors, again, named after plant types. So you had Professor Oak to start, but then I think it went to like Professor Vine, etc., etc. I don't know a lot of the new ones, but the one joke I remember being a bit older revisiting Pokemon was the fact that the whole story was just that Ash was raised by a single mum, and Professor Oak sent Ash out to go get the Pokemon so that he could then basically cozy up with his single mum while Ash would go out on a wild adventure. But there's a lot of adult jokes and kind of memes out of these days of kind of looking back on Pokemon. Again, back to the world itself, Pokemon, the cartoon that I watched, it was always bright, it was always well organized, there was a whole order of things. They had gyms in terms of Pokemon gyms, gym leaders who always looked pretty cool in terms of their character design. You'd go on to fight in tournaments, and then there were multiple different regions with different speciality type Pokemon, whether it was their elements or whether it was their landscape. But everything within the Pokemon world was very consistent and ordered, which I thought was pretty cool in terms of the bright colours, and everything had its place, everything fit exactly where it needed to be. Moving on from the cartoon and the video game, which I haven't talked about a lot, but is the Pokemon cards. So back in the 90s, it was a big thing, collecting trading cards, but we used to just collect the trading cards based on their power levels or their hit points, and not actually play the actual game itself. Well, that's what I did when I was a young kid in the 90s. We used to collect them for their shinies or their cool artwork. When I went to one of the Pokemon events in the local town centre, I remember they were doing a card event, and I went there and I remember seeing everyone using their energy cards, which we used to just bin because we weren't playing the game. And then there was all these little gems that used to put on them, and still to this day I have no idea what the Pokemon game actually involves. So if anyone in the comments, anyone watching does know, then do clue me up. Obviously I can go Wikipedia it, but I just remember we weren't into that at all. And I guess one of my stories or scumbag stories was the story of fake cards, was the fact that I went to Pakistan and it was still kind of waning in terms of popularity, but people were still trading. And I remember going to the shop and getting a booster deck and being like, this is awesome. Opening the booster deck and realizing that maybe these weren't actually legitimate Pokemon cards because the text wasn't right, the artwork was a bit faded, or the hit points or the power levels were crazy high, like thousands upon thousands. But I remember not being too satisfied. But my scumbag move was coming back to the UK after my holiday and trading people with these so-called ultra rare cards and trying to basically get some of theirs. I didn't do too many, but again, it was probably not my best moment or best move. But yeah, to anyone who's collecting any form of cards now, I'd say keep the originals or the good ones. I don't know where mine are, but some of these OG cards of Charizard, the Shinies and Pikachus and Mews, they're going for a fair amount of money. So yeah, any trading card that you're into, if you keep any original from when they first started, I think they can go upwards worth of hundreds. Not every trading card game, but certainly Pokemon, there's definitely a market for that. In terms of things that are more modern or relevant that I have dabbled in was Pokemon Go. Didn't really work out for me at the time. I thought it was a brilliant idea going on walks. At the time I didn't drive, so I often used to get the bus or walk to and here from friends' house to work and whatnot. But the one thing that didn't work for me was the fact that my phone battery was pretty naff, so it would always die when I was trying to get a Pokemon. I think the numbers for Pokemon Go have dropped, but they're still doing partnerships. The other thing that I watched recently, which was on Netflix, was Pokemon Concierge, which is basically a girl quits her job and goes and joins a Pokemon resort where Pokemon come to basically have a holiday. The reason I really liked that show was because they were short episodes, wholesome message, and the fact that it was stop motion. The stop motion Pokemon animation was really cool, seeing them use real life materials to actually put these Pokemon together, and it was super cute, and one of the few shows that my 10-month-old son Adam, that we actually allowed him to watch. I doubt he recognised consciously any of it, but still, it was a nice, cute, family-friendly show to watch with me, my son, and my missus. So I definitely recommend it. It's pretty easy watching, very short, and it's just cool seeing the stop motion put together specifically. Then other things to give a shout out to are probably Pokemon Unite, which I've been told is pretty good. I'm not sure which is the latest. Is Sun and Moon the latest, or Sword and Shield? My nephews have played both, or one or the other. Again, I'm not sure which one's the latest, but those are ones, if you're into Pokemon, to go check out. And then the final two comments before I wrap up this video is one, Power World is one of Steam's largest free-to-play games right now, and essentially it's Pokemon knockoff with guns, which sounds like a perfect combination. I think they've thrown a bit of Fortnite in there in terms of fort building, but it's got all the elements of Pokemon in terms of collecting rare pals, training them up, but you get to use guns as well, so it's almost a fusion of Pokemon and Call of Duty to a level, to a degree. Power World itself, I think, is in a lot of trouble from Nintendo in terms of infringement and the use of their models, because if you match them up, I saw another YouTuber do a video of where the models of base Pokemon were matched with pals and they were very similar. So there's a video by RDC World who talks about Nintendo's lawyers right now and how they're trying to match Power World. So that's quite a funny short to watch as well if you like comedy around anime. RDC does a whole load of great comedy around that. But Power World itself seemed like a spot on idea. I think the levels have dropped a bit, but it makes perfect sense in terms of it being a game that's for everyone. Pokemon with guns, essentially, and I'll just leave it at that. Final point, and again, sorry if this video has been a bit long or rambling. It is rambling larger after all, but there is going to be a Pokemon Centre opening in the EdXL in April in London. So for anyone who's into Pokemon massively or wants to go check it out, whenever they've opened Pokemon Centres elsewhere, I know they've got multiple continuously running Pokemon centers in Japan, obviously, but you can get great merchandise, great souvenirs, apparel, all sorts of things, but they kind of try and design it as if you were stepping into the Pokemon world, whether it's a Pokemon Center, Pokemon Gym, with your Pokedex, which is the kind of their artificial device or artificial intelligent device that would help them catalog and log all of these Pokemon. But yeah, that's opening in London in April, and it's something that I'm very keen to check out myself. But those are my initial thoughts around Pokemon, the OG of anime that started me off, and probably one of the most recognisable, most popular anime to date, to this day. Designed for a younger audience, but still got some great wholesome messages for everyone. The next video won't be about anime, because I did promise that it's not all just going to be about anime, although I can talk about anime for a long time. The next one's going to be slightly different, so stay tuned and check that one out. And again, thanks for everyone who's commented, give me some feedback, give me ideas, criticisms, likes, comments, subscribes, all of it. I'm really grateful. Like I said, it's just a bit of a hobby. I want to try this my best, and again, sorry for the long delay. I'm trying to edit this video a bit. I'm not sure how the audio is going to turn out because I'm not using my earphones, just using the phone. Probably going to be a bit tinny or cagey, but again, thanks for staying tuned and thanks for giving us a watch. And Rambling Roger out. Cheers, guys.